You can often tell a great deal about what's important to someone by taking a look around their house. At my great aunt's house, nearly every horizontal surface is covered with pictures of grandchildren, of great-grandchildren, of family members, even some long deceased. So it wouldn't be that difficult to say that family is very important to her. Sometimes you'll walk into other homes and see a beautifully appointed kitchen complete with top-of-the-line appliances. And so you might surmise that the people who live in that place enjoy preparing intricate and delicious meals. But sometimes you don't even have to get inside the house to see what's important. You might not have to make it past the perfectly manicured lawn and carefully tended flower bed to know that the people who live in this home love to be outside and love tending to God's creation. This can be true for larger groups of people as well. We recently moved into a new housing development, and one of the first signs that you see as you pull in is a sign that asks people to drive carefully and to be aware of the children who are playing there, because this community values letting the kids play outside and get involved in games of pickup hockey or maybe hopscotch. Today's reading from the book of Acts finds Paul in hostile territory. He's in the city of Athens and he's waiting there to meet up with his missionary partners. And while he's been waiting, he's been traveling around the city, getting to know it. It's a pretty small city by the standards of the day, only about 20,000 people as opposed to Corinth's 100,000. During his wanderings, Paul discovers something about this city. These people are obsessed with their gods. There were gods that governed every aspect of their lives. Sun, rain, harvest, travel, love, war, childbirth, everything. You get the idea. Anything that you could think of had its own god, and if you wanted something from that god, you'd better go and worship or do other things that particular god was believed to find pleasing. But there was more to it than just that. Because, you see, not all the gods always wanted the same things. It's entirely possible that while you were doing something that was designed to please the god of the seas, you may inadvertently anger the god of fertility. All of this led to this very complicated and intricate dance where you would need to be constantly looking over your life, seeing the places that need improvement, and then planning the appropriate offerings or sacrifices to the appropriate God in order to try to make your life go the way you wanted it to. To make matters even more complicated, the Athenians knew that even their best efforts could not possibly grasp every single god that was out there. And so they created this one final temple. It was a temple to an unknown god. It was a catch-all, a just-in-case. Hopefully, if they hadn't fulfilled their duties elsewhere, they could take a trip to this temple and worship this unknown god and maybe make up for any of the things that they had otherwise missed. What makes this text so compelling is the odd way that Paul has of approaching the people of Athens. You see, Paul was a Christian missionary and preacher, a man who dedicated his life to the spread of the good news of Jesus Christ. This is the same guy who told the Corinthians that he decided to know nothing among them except Jesus Christ and him crucified. And yet, Paul's sermon in this place, in Athens, doesn't explicitly mention Jesus at all. It doesn't draw on centuries of Jewish history and prophecy. It doesn't talk about a sinless life or innocent suffering and death. Instead, Paul begins someplace that would have been familiar to the Athenians. He tells them that he knows the identity of that unknown God. He says that their unknown God is actually the creator of the universe, the one who brought everything into existence, and that you and I have been created in the image of that God, and that God is as close to us as a mother is to her child, because it's in that God that we live and move and have our being. There's a lot about our world today that is unknown. It seems to me these days that it's almost impossible to make plans for longer than a week or maybe 2 weeks into the future, because the world is just changing that quickly. Even things in the relatively near time frame are filled with unknowns. We don't know how much longer this virus will continue to shape and form our common life. We don't know how much longer the official orders that have closed businesses and asked us to stay home will stay in place. And we don't know what exact effect the social distancing, or lack thereof, will have on the health and welfare of our neighbors. There's just so much that we don't know. And to be frank with you, as a person who loves to plan, that level of uncertainty and unknownness can be really difficult to deal with. So I take some comfort in hearing Paul tell the Athenians that his God is the unknown God. Not a God whose power is limited to the seas or the harvest or fertility. Our God is a God over all the unknowns. Our God is a God over the things that frighten us, the things that make us hesitant, that keep us awake at night, and that shake us to our very core. Our God is greater than all of those things. Our God has seen the Christian church through more difficult times even than these. And God's Spirit will once again lead us out into a strange and difficult world to announce the nearness of that same unknown God. The task that lies ahead of us as a church is a large one, far larger than us, but not nearly so large as our God. And if we intend to accomplish any of these things in front of us on our own, we would certainly fail. But we're not going into this alone. Our crucified and risen Savior has gone ahead of us into that very unknown. And so, dear friends, I invite you today to commit your unknowns to God. For it is in the care of this God of the universe, the God of the unknowns, that we live and move and have our being and have our hope.